Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our host for today's event, Brigadier General John T. Thomas, Commander, 85th Airlift Wing, welcome to the 2016 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Remembrance Program. I am Technical Sergeant Elizabeth Smith, and I will be your MC this afternoon. We are honored to have some special guests with us today. Guest speaker for the day's event, the Command Chief, United States Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa, Chief Master Sergeant James E. Davis and his wife Pat and son Cameron. Ms. Rhonda Ray, spouse of the Commander, 3rd Air Force, Lieutenant General Timothy M. Ray. Ms. Michelle DeBlee, spouse of the Commander, 7th Mission Support Command, Brigadier General Arlene DeBlee, accompanied by their son Kelly. The Vice Commander, 521st Air Mobility Operations Wing, Colonel Chuck Peterson. The Command Chief, 86th Airlift Wing, Chief Master Sergeant Philip L. Easton and his wife, Joanna. The Command Chief, 435th Air Ground Operations Wing and Air Expeditionary Wing, Chief Master Sergeant Todd Simmons. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to all directors, vice commanders, group and squadron commanders, chiefs, first sergeant, and the proud members of Team Ramstein. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of the German and American national anthems by Senior Airman Paula Hunt and invocation by Chaplain Henry Jenkins.
Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit sind des Glückes Unterpfand. Danach lass uns alles streben. Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit für das deutsche Vaterland. Danach lass uns alles streben, brüderlich mit Herz und Hand. Einigkeit und Recht und Freiheit sind des Glückes Unterpfand. Blutenganze dieses Glückes, blüher deutsches Vaterland. Blutenganze dieses Glückes, blüher deutsches Vaterland. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets red-glad, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you. You are welcome up, Chaplain Jenkins.
I invite you all to join me in prayer. Almighty God, we gather here today to commemorate one of your greatest sons and prophets of the faith, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We give our thanks and unwavering gratitude to you for taking the time to step into history and change a nation for the better. To continue his legacy, we now ask for your wisdom to live our lives as servants of humanity, students of kindness, and lights of hope. Remember the families who still face the perpetual injustice that Dr. King faced, and grant them the courage to fight and overcome evil with love until the repugnance of bigotry, prejudice, and hatred are eradicated from among us. O God, heal our nation, make us one people, and endow us with a spirit that loves our neighbor as ourselves, acts justly, loves mercy, and walks humbly before our God. This is our prayer and supplication. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Jenkins. As a young man, Dr. King excelled in academics. Due to his high scores on the college entrance examinations in his junior year of high school, he advanced to college without formal graduation at the age of 15. Dr. King was a pivotal figure in the civil rights movement. He was so passionate about this movement that he was arrested 30 times for his participation in various civil rights activities. Dr. King devoted his life's work to the cause of equality and social justice. Because he taught nonviolence and service to one another, problems such as hunger and homelessness, prejudice and discrimination can be overcome. His teachings continue to guide us in addressing our nation's most pressing needs: poverty, economic insecurity, job loss, and education. On Monday, January 18th, people of all ages and backgrounds will come together to bridge social barriers, improve lives, and move our nation closer to the beloved community that Dr. King envisioned. At this time, we have a selection from Ms. Angela McMullen.
Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for my heavenly home? Who, when Jesus, He is my portion, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. Oh, I sing because I'm free. Oh, me.
Thank you, Ms. McMullen. Captain Grisham, would you please come forward to introduce the oratorial contestants from the Kaiserswerth Military Community School?
It is
Connor is a 15-year-old sophomore from Ramstein High School. He is from Atlanta, Georgia. His parents are John and Marie Looney. Connor enjoys traveling. And the 2016 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Oratorical Contest winner goes to Mr. Sabin Udoka. Solomon is a 14-year-old freshman at Ramstein High School. He hails from Florence, South Carolina. He is the son of Mr. Udoka and Vicky Udoka. In his free time, Solomon enjoys hanging out with friends, watching movies, playing video games. Solomon plans to become a professional producer of music and acting.
The selfless devotion and sacrifice of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. helped to secure civil rights for all Americans. As an activist, Dr. King began his work in 1955 to persuade the government to declare that racial discrimination in the southern states was unlawful. In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. On August 28, 1963, he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial to a crowd of over 250,000 people. In the speech, he described his dream that all who live in America would be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. 47 years after his assassination in Memphis, Tennessee, his life, work, and struggle still inspires generations today and continues to influence our actions. There are many others who have lived their lives selflessly for the betterment of others. Dr. Udo Udoka is the founder of the Udoka Foundation, a Nigerian nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and business opportunities to youth in Nigeria. Dr. Udo Udoka was born in 1938 in eastern Nigeria, and by the age of 10, he was an orphan, but not before his parents had taught him the value of hard work and discipline. He worked in the farms in his village while he attended primary and secondary school, and after moving to the city for more work, he had saved enough money to pay his way to the United States in the 1960s. He studied banking and finance at the University of Oregon and then went to the University of Nebraska for his doctorate degree. My grandfather always wanted to give back to his community. Shortly after he left Nigeria, the country fell into a civil war and many of his friends and family members died along with over 1 million people. Rather than stay in the U.S. after his education, he returned home to help restore his native land and give back to the community that cared for her much as an orphan. After spending more than 30 years working to improve conditions for government workers, he established a foundation to provide educational opportunities and empowerment for rural youth. 2 years ago, I sat in the audience and listened intently as many prominent Nigerians described my grandfather's quiet humility, deep wisdom, and selflessness during the official launching of the Udoka Foundation in 2014. I also learned of his struggles as a youth and what he faced arriving into the United States during the civil rights struggle. Today, at 77 years of age, he continues to dedicate his life to helping others achieve their best. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Dr. Udo Udoka, my grandfather, all have several things in common. First, their lives represent service to others. Second, their devotion to achievement has influenced those whose lives they've touched. Third, their action was for much a greater cause than their own comfort. These men symbolize the definition of selflessness, and their example is why I'm proud to be an American, proud to be part of a legacy of service, and proud to be a Udoka. I plan to live out a similar theme of selfless devotion in my lifestyle by taking opportunities when others need help the most. I also plan to sacrifice things instead of just having them. give to my community by volunteering and showing that I really care. I stand on the shoulders of great men and women who have taught and continue to teach me to be a good example, to be a leader, to serve, but most importantly, to do all things with humility. Thank you.
Thank you to both students, Connor and Sabin, and thank you, Captain Grisham. Next up, we have an inspirational dance performance by a member of the Vocal Way Chapel Praise Dance Team, Staff Sergeant Janelle Ramsey. attention towards the screens, as the Observation Committee has produced a special video presentation.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's cry. From every mountainside, let freedom reign. If America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom reign. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom reign. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom reign. From the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom reign. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom reign. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom reign from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom reign from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom reign from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom reign. And when this happens, when we allow freedom reign, when we let it reign from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
That is, of course, Dr. Martin.
we are honored to have our guest speaker, Chief Master Sergeant James E. Davis, as the Command Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force in Europe and Air Force Africa. He serves as Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Commander on all matters affecting the readiness, training, utilization, and professional development of more than 21,000 enlisted personnel in the command. Please help me welcome up Chief Master Sergeant James E. Davis.
You know, I believe I've been set up. You don't come after Dr. Martin Luther King. That's not fair at all, you know. And Solomon, great job. Congratulations, Connor. Great job. I think that's awesome that you all took the time to write, you know, your beliefs about Dr. Martin Luther King. Ma'am, awesome song. I thought we were ready to have church. It's on, you know, and then we followed up with a dance. So good on you all. Thank you all for that. So I think the speech has already been given, man. You came up here to give a speech. So what am I supposed to do? I'll see if I can add a little bit on to what you said. Is that fair? All right. Dictionary.com defines a dreamer as a person who lives in a world of fantasy, one who is impractical and unrealistic. The second definition says a dreamer is a person whose ideas are considered audacious or highly speculative, a visionary. On August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King had the audacity to speak before thousands to articulate his dream, a watershed moment in the civil rights movement that affected the course of history. I ask you today, on 12 January 2016, over 50 years after the historical I Have a Dream speech, was it a fantasy? Was it impractical? Or was it unrealistic? General Thomas, Ms. Ray, Mr. Gleek, commanders, command chiefs, first sergeants that are here, and the KMCC community. It is indeed a privilege and an honor to remember Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, I've had the opportunity to speak on a lot of topics. And most of the topics that I talk about pertain to our service members, pertain to our families, pertain to our civilians. And I talk about resiliency and I talk about leadership. But to have the opportunity to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King is truly an honor for me to stand here before you today. So I'm going to start off and make you a promise. Because of that background, I'm not going to talk about the enlisted force development panel. I think you heard quite a bit on that. But as I was preparing to speak, I asked my boss, General Gordon, the U-Safety commander, what inspired him about Dr. Martin Luther King? And I give you a quote from him. He said, Martin Luther King's legacy proves that leadership makes a difference. The courage to address racism head on in a deliberate, nonviolent, and persistent way helped America move forward. This selfless courage, combined with an ability to eloquently describe his vision through some of the greatest speeches in American history, moved people like no other. He had a dream and graciously shared his dream with us. End quote. My question to you today is, as the program reads, are we making Dr. King's dream a reality? Does his dream still exist in today's world? When you listen to various news outlets and social media, there are varying degrees of agreement. Some say we, as America, we are improving and we've come a long way. But we still have a lot of work to do. Then others say job inequality, racial prejudice, and hatred are still rampant in our society. As you saw in 2015, we saw protests everywhere. And what really got my attention was I have a 15-year-old son that's sitting in the front row. You know, he's caught up in his iPod, his friends, and his basketball. But even he took notice. And he said, Dad, I don't know about going back to America. And so I don't miss an opportunity, especially when he's paying attention. I began to give him a lecture. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee in a single-parent home with two other siblings and my grandmother. But despite our hardships, my mother reinforced that I possessed the power and the responsibility to determine my future. Yes, there was racial tension. But that didn't keep me from my destiny because I was a dreamer. When you don't have a lot of things, you find yourself dreaming about everything. Our dreams are tied to our purpose in life. And it's extremely important for each of us to fulfill that purpose by developing and pursuing such important dreams like Dr. King. In life, many of us consider to be average. But our dreams make us larger than life. That is why we need to dream big. Many of us are afraid to think beyond the next day. But I challenge you to be bold and audacious in your dreams. Who told you that you can't pursue your heart's desires? The dream shouldn't be tied to your race, ethnicity, religion, or your gender. We should not be afraid to dream the impossible. Dr. King's dream of racial equality and economic justice was ridiculously large, but still he pursued such a seemingly insurmountable goal. His vision of a colorblind society seemed virtually impossible to everyone except him. Harriet Tubman stated that every great dream begins with a dream. Always remember, you have within yourself the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and change the world. Few can argue that Dr. King's life, his death, his legacy contributed to the fulfillment of his dream. Ask yourself, are my dreams big enough? Do I dream the impossible? Can I get all I deserve out of life? And when you dream big, you will face adversity at some point. Some say that adversity builds character, and others say adversity shows your character. What are you willing to endure? Dr. King was arrested, as she stated, over 30 times. His house was bombed. Friends turned on him. Enemies continuously plotted against him. And while he was at a book signing, he was stabbed by a woman. And the doctor said that even so much as a sneeze would have killed him. And as you know, the ultimate sacrifice, that he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. Again, I ask, what are you willing to endure? What adversity are you willing to overcome? We serve in a military that's not perfect, but we have continuously made improvements in our ranks. Are we as diverse as we need to be? No, we're not. The Air Force defines diversity as a composite of individual characteristics, experiences, and abilities consistent with our core values. So it's not just about race. And there are many times the subject of race comes up and we get very uncomfortable with it. But it's a topic that we've got to deal with. We, the military, have always been the standard bearer for these issues. And I recall in my previous job where someone asked the general that I used to work for, why did you hire Chief Davis as your command chief? And he said, because he doesn't look like me. And oh, by the way, he's the most qualified. Thomas N. Barnes, the first African-American Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, said during an interview when he was asked, how did he want to be remembered? I like to be remembered as a role model for people who believe they can't get there, he said. It was an honor to have been chosen as the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force on the basis of my qualifications as opposed to my race and my gender. I've been told you weren't the one we expected to get promoted, but congratulations. I've been told you would have been the NCO of the quarter, but I didn't want anyone thinking that I was hooking up the brother. What are you willing to overcome to make this dream a reality? Will you quit because you don't get along with your supervisor? Will you quit because you didn't get the promotion you thought you deserved or the award you thought you deserved? Dr. King said it best. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. I ask you today, where will you stand? You can't make a dream a reality alone. Some say without Howard Thurman, there wouldn't be a Dr. Martin Luther King, because he was a mentor to Mr. King, and he started preparing Dr. King early in life. In order to fulfill the dream, we must prepare early, and no one just becomes the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. No one just becomes the Chief of Staff of the Air Force or the Secretary of the Air Force. Someone developed and nurtured their dreams along the way. when General Lord Vic Newton, the Thunderbird's first black pilot to become a 4-star general, was a teenager, his father asked him, what is the greatest 4-letter word in the dictionary? And they played around with a lot of different terms. And they would say terms like love, and he would say no to all their answers. And he said, the answer is no. The more knowledge you have, the better off you will be. You see, his father had a 2nd grade education, and his mother had a 6th grade education, but his father had a vision for him. His father had a dream for him. And he began nurturing that dream early on in his life. But not only that, that dream also began to be nurtured by others. General Newton had a burning desire to become a Thunderbird pilot. 3 times he tried out. 3 times he was rejected. But roughly 10 years later, that dream finally became a reality. He became a Thunderbird pilot. So I ask you today, who's nurturing your dream? Who is deliberately developing you to set you up for success? My favorite quote is, success is uncommon, therefore not to be enjoyed by the common man. Candace, who is nurturing your dream? I mentioned growing up in Tennessee in a world where as a young African American, I could have been arrested at any point. Not because I've done anything wrong, but because of the color of my skin. And my first assignment was in Augsburg, Germany. And my whole desire was really to make my mother proud, because in growing up, I was the oldest of 3 siblings. And her desire was for me to grow up and not work in the factory that she worked in. But guess what I did? When I reached high school, I started working in that factory, because you have a purpose in your life. And so I went on, as I stated, to join the military. And I started hanging out with different crowds. But along came Harry Washington. And he said to me, there's something different about you. And that changed my whole career. And throughout my career, I continuously run into Harry Washingtons. And I ask you today, who is your Harry Washington? Who is helping to develop and nurture your dreams? Remember, it's important to dream big in order to fulfill your purpose in life. Yes, you will face adversity, but you're not alone. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. You will face adversity. I want you to think for a few minutes who we are today as America and American citizens and what we represent. Although we're not perfect, we represent democratic values, options to become whoever and whatever we want to be. We are a country of every religion, every color, every ethnicity, every preference. Whatever you like, whether you like it or not, that is what we are, and that's what makes us great today. Dr. King was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee at 6:01 p.m. on the 4th of April, 1968. But not even the bullet that entered his right cheek, shattering his jawbone before traveling down his spinal cord, could abort his dreams. Because he was a dreamer. And his only punishment was he saw the dawn before the end of the day. Keep on dreaming. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Davis, for that inspiring speech. Now I'll welcome up our host, Brigadier General John T. Thomas.
So it's a real pleasure and privilege to be host here for an event like this. It's important and special that we take time out during our day for events young men who shared their talents. One who we got the pleasure of listening to this morning, or this afternoon. Whether we started Rachel, Nancy. All of that, everybody sharing their talents to bring us together, to recognize what's so important about this celebration. The holiday is on Monday, of course, but this celebration. It's a celebration about freedom. It's a celebration about coming together to overcome challenges. It's a celebration about having a vision for the future. So everybody else who contributed, let's give them a round of applause. You know, let me close with one personal thought about Dr. King, and then a challenge for everybody, myself included. Thinking about Dr. King throughout my life, and through, I was recognized by American worldwide, terms that are used, well, of course, pastor, reverend, and inspiration, example for us all terms that we can use to start life. To me, there's another term, maybe it's not that commonly used, but it is patriot. So we heard an example of his speaking and his inspiration to us when I had yours a couple times. So for me, when I realized Dr. King was a patriot, so I read another wasn't a speech, it's a letter they wrote. They wrote in a place that was dark, hopeless, it looked like he was going to win. Letter from a Birmingham jail. There almost is no pure distillation of what it means to be an American. And it's what's in that letter. If you haven't read it, take the time. It's absolutely awesome. That's when I realized it myself personally. This man was a patriot. He stood for everything that we believe in as Americans. So, why is he admired other than those things? Is that he was an inspiration, a patriot, but he also got things done. He made things happen. And so that's the challenge that I got as we all head out to work here. There's a great term that's come up now about Martin Luther King Day. It's not a day off, it's a day on. So that's us on Monday. Whether there's a formal activity that you're involved in, or if it's something that you just do on your own, whether it's cleaning up your community, or whether it's going and helping somebody else, go do it.